In Star Wars, there are few lightsabers worse than the over-engineered weapon of the Inquisitorius. Sure, it's claimed its fair share of Jedi, but the design is fragile, easy to break, and honestly dangerous for the user. So today, my friends, I'm going to be looking at how we can fix it. I'm going to get right into this, so let's begin. First, we need to look at the main issues with the design. The exposed hand grip leaves the users vulnerable to finger loss and precision strikes. For example, one could get a little pop shot off and, if they were close and precise enough, take off the opponent's hand. I'm not being gory, I think this turn genuinely could happen. The ring itself is weak and not at all lightsaber resistant, as shown by what happens to the Grand Inquisitor, and removing the crystal causes the entire weapon to explode, just like the sixth brother in the Ahsoka novel, because nothing says Imperial engineering like a weapon that explodes when you goddamn drop it. Finally, most Inquisitors lack additional tools or attachments, with the eighth brother being the only real exception, and I believe this actually hinders their possible capabilities, as that Saw could have been very capable if they had just been able to handle his character a little better, maybe giving him a bit more time in Rebels. I think personally it might have been a better option to do him than the fifth brother. That's just my opinion. And now that we've identified the main problems, we can now get on to fixing them. The first fix that would be made is reinforcing the ring. The ring is not at all lightsaber resistant, which all in itself is a massive flaw, and this simply could be solved by making out of something like Beskar or cortosis to make sure that something that happens like what happened to the Grand Inquisitor would never happen again. Reasoning for Beskar is that it can withstand lightsaber heat for long periods of time, like seen in The Mandalorian when he fought Moff Gideon, who had the dark saber, which already burns at a much higher plasma heat of a blade than your average lightsaber. The reasoning for cortosis is that, as seen in The Acolyte with the Sith Lord Khmer, although not officially named a Sith, but we'll class him as it because he has a red blade and he uses Sith powers. Sorry if I went off topic there. Cortosis can completely short-circuit a lightsaber on contact for a short amount of time. It's effectively a nullifier to the plasma blade in itself. Although I didn't mention it at the beginning, I believe that even Durasteel would be a massive improvement, as it is already proven to have a slight amount, or more than most metals, of lightsaber durability, and can be counted on relatively well on heavy armor sets. The only problem they would have would be that it is not lightweight, but it could be an alternative if they just gave the Inquisitors some physical training. I believe, though, that Beskar is especially realistic, since the Empire did control Mandalore for a long period of time during their reign, especially after the Purge, where the planet was effectively glass. There were no Mandalorians that would have ventured back there, as it was thought to have it was effectively cursed, and thought to have a toxic atmosphere, meaning that they would not interfere with Imperial mining operations. The next option or fix would actually be to protect the handle, as the exposed handle hilt is basically an invitation for the user to pop in a little saber jab and for the Inquisitor to lose their hand, and this would be an especially bad flaw against someone that utilizes the second form of lightsaber combat, Makashi. I believe that two possible solutions could work here. The first would be a fold-out physical guard around the handle, similar to the ring mechanism, which can lock in and out, but it would be similar to a semi-sphere, which could then lock around, but it would be hollow, so you can still have the same grip mobility, but make it so they can't get in. I would also suggest that it would be made out of something like Beskar cortosis, similar to the newly reinforced handle. The second option, which I believe would be more cost effective for the Empire and easier to use in general, would actually be an energy shield attachment, similar to the one seen in the Knights of the Old Republic games, or some of you may remember from the Clone Wars, the orange energy shields used by the BX Commando droids in the Clone Wars during the Citadel arc. Despite me believing that the physical guard would be a lot better for the Inquisitors, they were made to be expendable by the Empire, and they were easy to replenish their ranks, especially due to them having control over a vast amount of Force-sensitive children. Though I do believe that the Empire would have to choose the energy shields as, if I'm being honest, they chose to save a lot of revenue for things just like the Death Star. And when you think of the Empire, you have to keep in mind that they aren't a limitless wellspring of money. They are a government. Just as the Galactic Republic could go into debt, so could the Empire. They may control the galaxy's revenue, but they cannot overthrow the system of currency. The third fix that I would implement would actually be to stabilize the crystal system, or mainly the saber's reliance on the power created by the kyber crystal. When the spinning mechanism, though, is active, pulling the crystals out can cause the saber to explode, as seen in the Ahsoka novel when she fought the sixth brother. Although she was unarmed, she was able to remove them and kill him via the explosion. But to fix this, I believe that the Inquisitors should use a secondary crystal, as this would allow for them, even if the original crystals were removed, they could have it in a concealed compartment or in a very durable one, meaning they would still have a relative power source. It would just have to be more evenly distributed or cause shorter blades via the lightsaber. Though despite the Empire having a massive kyber mining installation on the planet of Ilum, I believe they once again would cheap out and would choose this much more cost-effective, to say the least, alternative. This being an internal backup power pack, which would not keep the saber or the saber blade going, but it would still allow for the spinning mechanism to work if they had an extra tool like the Eighth Brother did, where they wouldn't be able to use a normal lightsaber. Let's say they did, but they could basically throw the saw blade extension. In the Eighth Brother's case, I'm using him as an example here, as effectively a boomerang chainsaw. And I think if they could control that with the Force and they could have a very long sweep with it very quickly, that could be incredibly dangerous to Jedi survivors, as it isn't like blocking a lightsaber blade. It is something genuinely sharp which can injure you. I truly do believe that either option out of these two would be able to stabilize the weapon and prevent a catastrophic failure if the main crystal is damaged or removed during combat or in any other case. The fourth and final fix that I would add to the Inquisitor's lightsaber, and this is more of an idea I would have had, not something that would have fixed any main mechanisms or issues, but one that would actually make them a lot more combat capable, and this would be to add more useful tools, just like the weapon of the Eighth Brother. I am using him a lot as an example in this video, because I think he is closer than what most of the others' lightsabers should be to a perfected model. The saw attachment on the Eighth Brother's lightsaber, I know I have just brought him up all over again, but it is the best example of what these sabers could include. For example, tools like this would be very useful for interrogation of targets that could lead them to further Jedi, rebel cells, or other required assets. They could also be very useful for field survival if they needed to hunt, gain wood for a campfire, or any other reasons if they needed something that could actually cut. Or they could use it for field repairs if they needed to cut down, strip, or help remove a part of a damaged starship, mechanism, or otherwise. So for the examples I will give, I will actually split this up into two different halves. One will be the Inquisitors that rely much heavier on their force sensitivity rather than their skill at the blade, and vice versa, with Inquisitors who are stronger at the blade but not as capable in the ways of force. The much more force-sensitive Inquisitors could use something, I know I'm bringing it up a lot, like the Eighth Brother's lightsaber, except not with the repeating razor, but something I believe would be better, a fold-out mechanism of vibroblades, because these have been proven to be able to withstand lightsabers and be able to counter them. If you had a spinning mechanism of this and throw it at them, they could actually knock the opponent's lightsaber clean out of their hand with the reinforced rim, just in case it got to that, meaning that it could either disarm the opponent or take them out as an alternative to using your crystals. I believe that for the members of the Inquisitorius that rely much more on their skill in combat, for example, warriors like the Crow, or warriors, I know this may be incorrect, but the Grand Inquisitor, as I haven't actually seen him do that many powerful feats with the Force rather than at the blade, I think that they should have something similar to ancient Sith engravings or other combat style designs that could inspire fear into their enemies, as this could be a very easy tool to manipulate, and if they could feed on their opponent's dark side emotions, they'll be able to boost them at the blade and then help them defeat their enemy. I'm just going to do a small recap on what I have said and discussed today, just so that it'll be easier covered over and much more simple to explain or understand if this has been too long of a video for some of you to watch. To recap, I would reinforce the ring with a lightsaber durable material, preferably Beskar, Cortosis, or Durasteel, as these are the ones I've suggested. I would add protection to the handle, like I've said, with the different types of shields to go over the handle, which could fold in for better flexibility. I would make sure to stabilize the crystal mechanism, having a backup power source, whether that either be an extra kyber crystal or an external power source, which isn't a kyber crystal, just like a battery pack, and to give each Inquisitor useful tools based on their combat styles, preferences, or force abilities. And I think these simple fixes would be what makes an Inquisitor's lightsaber far more reliable and less likely to blow up in their hands. And I think this would just boost their effectiveness massively. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be doing more like this in the future. And I think I'm going to do a whole one on how to fix the Inquisitorius and other things not too far from now, though may the Force be with you, and I will see you all in the next video.